Good morning. On behalf of the students of BCST 115 at City College of San Francisco, I'd like to officially welcome you to our Spring 2024 Announcing and Performance Showcase. I'm Khiaecia Key, and it's a pleasure to have you join us today. All semester long, we've been refining our vocal skills, strengthening our script writing abilities, and exploring the world of production behind the camera. We've had a great time creating everything you're going to see in the next hour, and we can't wait to share it with you. Here's a quick rundown of the show. First, we'll dive into some current affairs with a colorful news segment. Following that, prepare to be taken on a journey with a series of personal stories, including how a surprise performance inspired a new career, a gripping account of love and murder, and a piece about an unexpected bond between a bear and a crow. Finally, we'll ride the channel surfing wave with a lively animation, a commercial, and a movie review. Without further ado, here's Kevin Cosby to kick things off.
Thank you. In our first segment of the Student Showcase, we'll see our take on the news. These news broadcasts were recorded in the City College Broadcasting Studios, where students work together as a TV production staff, taking turns handling all the fundamental roles of live TV production, from anchoring, camera operation, audio, and direction. Imagine hands-on job training and musical chairs rolled into one. Now, sometimes all too real, sometimes cheeky, sometimes perhaps from an alternate dimension, I present to you CCSF's Broadcast News.
Good morning, dear viewers. You're watching Ukrainian news, and today I'm your host, Kateryna Malch. So let's move on the latest news. Russia launched another big shelling on Ukraine. A series of explosions rocked Kyiv on March 25th. People in the capital heard at least 4 loud explosions just seconds after air raid sirens. Shortly after, smoke rose from the left bank of the city. Serhiy Popko, head of the Kyiv City Military Administration, said that debris from a missile had fallen in the Pechers district, damaging a non-residential building. Also, debris fell on a building of the Kyiv State Academy of Decorative Arts, destroying a gym and a concert hall. The KCMA clarified that out of 10 victims, 2 people were wounded and hospitalized, and the remaining 8 people had suffered from shock. Mayor Klitschko said that 2 pregnant women and a 16-year-old girl were among the victims. President Zelensky and Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba urged Western allies to provide Ukraine with more air defense systems following the recent Russia's missile strike on Ukraine. Besides that, today Zelensky discussed the issue of further comprehensive assistance to Ukraine with American Republican Senator Lindsey Graham. Graham arrived in morning for a visit to Kyiv. The Ukrainian president told him about the situation on the front lines and the priority needs of army, in particular, the critical further provision of military technical assistance by partners, namely air defense systems and missiles for them. In other news, today, 3 more families with their children left the territories temporarily occupied by Russia in Donetsk and Zaporizhia regions. One family with 3-year-old child lived in Energodar. The couple worked at the nuclear power plant, and when they refused to cooperate with Russians, they faced threats, intimidation, and physical violence from them. Another family, a mother with an 8-year-old son. The boy was secretly studying at Ukrainian school remotely. One day, invaders came to their house with search. In last minutes, the family managed to hide books in Ukrainian. Another family from Donetsk that managed to leave barely saved their 9-year-old son from deportation to Tatarstan in Russia. All families are now safe in the territory controlled by Ukraine. So that's all for this hour. Thank you for being with us. Updates will be at 7. Thank you for supporting Ukraine.
Hello, America. This is Shamelessly Stolen from the Internet News, and I'm Kevin Cosby. Tonight's headlines: the Catholic Church courts youth by adding badass deity with robotic falcon head. In an attempt to make the church feel fresh and exciting again for youths around the world, The Roman Catholic Church announced Friday that it has added belief in a badass deity with a robotic falcon head to its existing dogmas. Starting today, the Church will officially recognize our newest god, Talontron, a 40-foot cyber falcon that shoots lasers from its eyes, an excited Pope Francis said in an official press conference, adding that the 6-billion-year-old all-powerful deity was also able to lay explosive eggs, blow fire from its beak, and screech at such a high frequency that it could help melt human flesh. We understand that today's generation is less concerned with Jesus' teachings of love and forgiveness and far more interested in religious figures capable of picking up a car and crushing it with their talons. Also, this god is asexual, loves skincare, and is best friends with Timothée Chalamet. At press time, the Pope also said he hoped to attract more young followers to the Catholic Church by stepping down and being succeeded by the supreme Mr. Beast. Bruno Mars reportedly in $50 million of debt with MGM Casino after assuming cocktails were complimentary. Now in the 8th year of his long-term residency at the resort, pop star Bruno Mars reportedly owes the park MGM $50 million after having assumed since 2016 that the casino cocktails were complimentary. They're supposed to be free, right? At least while you're gambling? Asked the Uptown Funk singer, claiming that bar staff across the Las Vegas hotels, casinos, restaurants, and poolside bars never mentioned a tab when offering him another round of drinks, nor did they ever ask for his room number. In interview, Mars stated, "I don't even remember putting down a credit card. They always just said, 'Very well, Mr. Mars,' and brought another tray of drinks over. What a scam. If I'd known they were charging me, I would have stuck to the cheap stuff. I'm definitely going to need them to show me an itemized bill for everything before I check out." Mars later confirmed that where the park MGM really got him was the mini bar's $12 bags of macadamia nuts, which he had been eating continuously for almost a decade. Unsettling Ancestry.com report informs man Genghis Khan descended from him, remarking that his family history was apparently far more complicated than he originally thought. Cleveland resident Nathan Yang received an unsettling Ancestry.com report Monday that said Genghis Khan was descended from him. That's weird. This says I'm closely related to the first Khan of the Mongol Empire, and that he's my biological son, said the confused 36-year-old project manager, adding that while he didn't understand how it was possible, it appeared he had somehow fathered the man responsible for uniting the Mongol hordes in the early 13th century and leading one of the bloodiest conquests in all of history through much of Europe and Asia. According to this report, Genghis Khan, who was born in 1162 and formed the largest continuous land empire ever, should call Nathan Yang dad, despite Yang being born in Ohio in 1988. At press time, Yang stated, "This says I have thousands of grandchildren and over 16 million descendants. Wow. It's going to take a while to reach out to them all." Yang said in retrospect, Genghis Khan, being his son, actually made a lot of sense, especially given his hatred of the Khwarezmian Empire and his deep, inexplicable fear of the Great Wall of China. This has been Shamelessly Stolen News. I'm Kevin Cosby, if that is my real name. Good night.
Good afternoon, and welcome to News 11 for CCSF. I'm your host, Stacey Mcrobbie. Breaking news, a crime has been committed on the playground at Johnson Park Elementary. Sources say that a group of 5-year-olds surrounded Francine the Frog yesterday morning, and she hasn't been seen since. A ransom note has been posted to the playground fence in the afternoon, demanding 49 sticks of bubblegum and more recess time. No word yet on her whereabouts or if her family has been contacted at this time. We will keep you apprised of the situation as it unfolds. If you have any information, please call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-0101. In other news, there was an incident earlier this morning that we sent our seasoned 6-year-old reporter to investigate. Word on the street that the company Uncrustables finally found a way to remove all of the crust on a PB&J. After the investigation, however, and through many tears, it was clear that some crust was still present at the scene. We wanted to interview that reporter here today. However, after the tragic events, our reporter couldn't appear and had to take a much-needed mental health day. Earlier today, cops were dispatched to a scene where an inconsolable child was found crying. Upon further investigation, it was discovered that 100 Skittles were missing from the premises. After all the suspects at the scene were questioned, it wasn't clear who the culprit was until our investigator showed up. During our interviews, it was discovered that the crying child who called 911 for the missing Skittles had in fact personally lost those Skittles herself after eating every single one of them. Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Stacey Mcrobbie for News 11. Good night.
Good evening and welcome to KKTV's Entertainment Report. I'm your host, Khiaecia Key. In fashion news, mark your calendars for Monday, April 8th as the Fashion Scholarship Fund gears up to honor college students who are dedicated to reshaping the fashion industry. The event will take place at the Glass House in New York City and will be hosted by supermodel Paloma Elsesser. The fund will also honor Chairman and CEO of LVMH, Michael Burke, alongside actress and CEO of Pattern Beauty, Tracee Ellis Ross, and Nordstrom's President and Chief Brand Officer, Pete Nordstrom, for their unwavering support for diverse emerging talent. A total of $1.4 million will be given to 130 college students, including recipients of this year's Virgil Abloh Postmodern Scholarship Fund, whose work will be highlighted at the event. Since its founding in 1937, the Fashion Scholarship Fund has placed a strong emphasis on supporting underrepresented students. The organization is dedicated to reshaping industry perceptions from within by promoting equity through financial support to enhance diversity in the fashion industry. Notably, since launching this initiative to fund underrepresented students, the proportion of scholars from diverse backgrounds has surged from 22% to 62%. Okay, folks, saddle up for this next piece. In music news, global pop icon Beyoncé's latest release, Cowboy Carter, has already galloped its way to the top of Spotify's charts, smashing records with a whopping 76 million streams in a single day. The album's fast-paced canter continued on another platform by rounding up the most first-day streams for a country album by a female artist in the history of Amazon Music. Though the Houston native's latest release has been labeled as a country western album, its sound bucks the tradition and conservatism of the genre by incorporating not only pop, hip-hop, and R&B, but it also borrows from flamenco, opera, and fado, a style of music from Portugal that is believed to have Afro-Brazilian roots. It should be noted that the artist herself said that this is not a country music album, but a Beyoncé album. Nevertheless, critics agree that Cowboy Carter is forming a whole new posse of country music enthusiasts by making the category more accessible to a broader audience. This is evidenced by the fresh new herd of fans that's being lassoed in for lesser-known Black country music artists who've traditionally been left out of the commercial success rodeo. Singer-songwriter Raina Roberts says she's experienced a 250% increase in album streams, while organizations like the Black Opry are reporting a surge in membership spurred by the album's release. Artists aren't the only ones to see an uptick in interest after Cowboy Carter rode onto the scene. Immediately following the album's announcement during a Super Bowl commercial, which aired on February 21st, global Google searches for cowboy hat skyrocketed by almost 213%, while searches for the term bolo tie increased by a whopping 566%. This is the 8th studio album for the singer-songwriter and the second installment of a trilogy project the artist conceived during the COVID-19 pandemic. The first installment, titled Renaissance, was released in 2022 and is primarily a house and disco record highlighting and celebrating the Black originators of dance music. Similarly, as the second act, Cowboy Carter explores country music's African-American roots. This leaves fans speculating as to what category the third installment in the trilogy will be. I've got some ideas myself, but I'm going to keep them reined in for now. Visit KKTV on Instagram and leave a comment about what you reckon the next album's category is. That's all the news we've got for tonight, y'all. I'm your host, Khiaecia Key. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for more culture and arts news.
Welcome back, everyone. In this segment, we're going to be hearing, and we are thrilled to present Moth Stories. For those who are not familiar, Moth Stories are a celebration of true personal storytelling. Originating from The Moth, a nonprofit organization dedicated to the art and craft of storytelling, these stories are real, unfiltered, and often deeply moving experiences shared by ordinary people. We have a fantastic lineup of storytellers. First, we will hear from Lime, followed by Wes, and finally Stacey. Each of these stories are going to be something you want to hear, and we promise to inspire, entertain, and connect us all through watching them. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into these remarkable tales with our first storyteller, Lime.
So this story requires a little bit of background. I'll do it pretty quick because it's not too important. I was about 16. It was late 2021, when the pandemic was kind of coasting down, but still definitely in existence. I was, like I said, 16, a very angsty, angry teenager, and I had been getting into punk rock and hardcore and alternative music. And I started running a magazine with my best friend at the time, who I had met in high school. We met our freshman year, and we were both, angsty, rejected, dumb, just not really able to fit in with most people. We were pretty socially awkward. Through that, we bonded and got very close very fast. And then the pandemic hit, and we had both been steadily getting into, punk rock music and alternative music, and it was the first time in my life where I had an outlet for new emotions I'd been feeling at this age. Puberty and all this development in your brain. I didn't really know how to deal with it, and for the first time, I not only had a very good friend that, I could talk to, but I had a whole just genre of music and art that I could appreciate and go to, and it made me feel a lot less alone. Then the pandemic started, and initially we wanted to start a band because we were told that this whole coronavirus thing was going to last 2 weeks, and that was like vacation for us. 2 weeks to put a band together, let's record some demos, put them out for fun. Obviously it didn't last 2 weeks, lasted a couple fucking years. But those 2 weeks turned into a month, and then eventually the rest of our school year was canceled, and then the next year we did virtual learning. Pretty weird for me, in high school. Weird adjustment to make, especially just halfway through. But I remember 2021 was my junior year, and it was over the summer. I think it was, probably would have been September, I think. And we decided we were going to throw a show. We'd been working on this local magazine, and we'd built up a pretty decent following in our local music scene. Had a couple thousand followers on our Instagram. I had a lot of people buying our issues that we released every month, and I was pretty proud of myself. It was definitely like a landmark in my life where I had put a lot of effort and time into something, and I guess the response was overwhelmingly positive. It was positive enough for us to put a show together. We had a DIY spot ready to go, and we had met a lot of people throughout the scene from doing interviews with local bands and musicians and poets and artists and whatnot. We wanted a lot of people to contribute stuff, and we always embraced it. So we had networked with a lot of people, and some of those people, one group in particular I was very close with, was a band called Moms of Banks, still called Moms of Banks, still going. Fantastic. I really do suggest you check them out if you haven't heard of them. Moms of Bangs, 4 people: Michael, Axel, Leo, Will at the time. Big deal. I can't explain why. Band beef. These 4 guys, who I had met only a couple months ago, were slowly becoming very good friends of mine, and I had offered them the headlining spot of this show. And we decided it was going to be a benefit show, because I remember the Northern California fires were raging pretty hard at this point, and a lot of my friends who I had known had been displaced and affected by this fire, unfortunately, and I wanted to do something that I thought would raise awareness and would benefit the situation. So we decided that we were going to pledge any money we made off of selling zines, merch, whatever, and we were going to donate it to the Red Cross, first responders, whatever. It was a great idea. We had a couple bands ready to go, and the day of the show, we had like 300 people show up, and it was perfect. It was a dream for me. You know, bands were playing, everyone was having a great time, everyone's smoking and drinking and dancing, and just having a great time. And I remember having a great time too. Even being the organizer of the event, making sure everything was running smooth, I was just having a fantastic time. But eventually, something has to go wrong, is everything always something always has to go wrong, is what I'm trying to say. And the thing that went wrong is the moms' bands arrive, ready to perform, but Leo, the lead singer, has duct tape over his mouth and has written on his forehead in black Sharpie, "I can't speak." We were pretty confused, and we thought he was doing like a joke at first, but eventually Michael arrives and goes, "Yeah, man, I don't know if Leo's going to be able to sing tonight. Kind of blew his vocal cords out last night at another show." Would have been nice to know that before, but whatever. And obviously this sent me through a wave of panic. I was like 15 or 16, and it's the biggest deal, having one bump in your road. And I was like, fuck, is people going to leave because there's no one singing? Is an instrumental set going to even be cool? Whatever. I was panicking. And they couldn't find a filler. No one wanted to fill. They didn't know anyone who knew all the lyrics like they did who could sing. And I kind of knew all the lyrics and stuff. And here I was, watching them have this issue, not knowing who to fill. And I was a huge fan of this band. I knew all their songs. I'd never played music before, was the only issue. And like 300 people were at this show ready to see this band play. And reluctantly, I suggest that I could do vocals. I knew the lyrics, and I could give it a shot if it was the last option. And you need to keep in mind, I'd only known these guys for a couple months, and we weren't that close, too. I had interviewed them for my magazine, and we had done some other stuff with music, but nothing serious. And it was a complete shot in the dark of me going, hey, if you need vocals, I can lay down vocals. Some with no experience whatsoever. It sounded like a disastrous idea. But they agreed and put a microphone in my hand. We went up, and it went great. It was my first show in front of a live audience, and I just knew what to do. I was bringing the energy, slamming things down, screaming in the microphone, kicking dust, and just throwing fists. Looking back, I had such a great time, and the audience loved it, man. It was my first performance at the first show I'd ever organized, and we were raising money. And it went great. We ended up raising, I think, $2,500 in one night of just magazine sales and merch sales, and all the bands had pledged the money they made that night, and we raised $2,500. And it made me a lot closer with those people, and it inspired me to pursue music and audio full-time, which is what I do now. It's become my life, and that was 100% the push that I needed to get it all jump-started. And I've got no regrets about it whatsoever. It was one of the best things that's ever happened to me.
Everybody always has a favorite icebreaker story that they like to tell. Sometimes it's something that happens from that day or from their week, but they like it to be memorable and to get people talking. Mine just so happens to be a story that happened to me in my 20s. It's just a little bit morbid. So at that time, my mother was dating a gentleman who had recently gotten divorced from his ex-wife, and they shared 2 children together. Now, we had not met this man, so we couldn't really gauge how he was personally, but from how my mother described him, he seemed like a fun, happy-go-lucky type of guy who really loved his kids, and it just didn't work out with the ex-wife. They had fallen out of love with each other. Well, one weekend when it wasn't his turn to watch his children, his ex-wife had called and said, hey, I have this opportunity to go on this vacation, and I would really appreciate it if you could watch the kids for me this weekend. He said, of course. Bring the kids on over. Love to have them. Spend any extra time with them is the absolute best. So while she was dropping off her kids at his house, he noticed that her new boyfriend was in the car. So curiosity got the better of him, and he asked, "Where are you going?" And so she replied, "You know that trip that we always wanted to go on, but we never got around to taking it? I have the opportunity now." And she was taking the new boyfriend. This infuriated the ex-husband. He got so mad. This was something that they had planned for them together. It was special. It was something connected. And the more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He started sending violent messages, text messages to her phone, started repetitively calling her, and she was just trying to ignore it, try to let him calm down, and move on from the situation. Unfortunately, there's only one road out of our town to get on the highway towards where she had been headed. So the ex-husband got in his pickup, raced till he found their vehicle, got in front of them, slammed on the brakes, and stopped them on the highway. Instead of having just a physical or a verbal confirmation, he had brought a gun. Now, they weren't sure who was murdered first, but by the time the police had arrived on the scene that the ex-husband called, both the ex-wife and the new boyfriend were no longer with us. Now, usually having a murder happening near or to your family is kind of a rare occurrence, but it gets a little bit stranger while about 2 weeks later, another murder happened in close connection to my family. My sister at the time was dating a gentleman who was no longer in a relationship with the mother of his child, but he did share a child with somebody. Now, during one particular weekend, he had planned on a date night with my sister, but unfortunately something came up with his ex, and he had to watch the child that weekend, which infuriated him because it had changed and canceled the plans that he had. I'm not quite sure on how much my sister had interacted with the young child, as the child was only 3 to 4 years old, or 2 to 3. It was very young. But in a sense, it did cancel their plans for that weekend. Now, so on that Saturday morning, the little boy woke up, went and woke up his dad, but thinking about their date, the man had gotten so infuriated that he shook his baby to death. He didn't call the cops for a couple of hours, so when the cops arrived, they found the little boy downstairs with his head slumped in a bowl of cereal. He told the cops that he must have gotten up and made himself a bowl of cereal, but fell back asleep and was super tired. But later in the investigation, they learned that the body simply had been dead for too long, and the milk was too cold for that to have been a possibility. So during a short, brief window, both my mother and my sister dated murderers, and still to this day, they love to give me relationship advice. Which brings up a couple of things. One, you shouldn't trust everybody that gives you relationship advice, and you definitely shouldn't trust anybody who dated murderers. It's very weird, very morbid, but make sure that you are getting sound advice from people in happy relationships and not anybody weird. Also, stay offline.
Okay, so for a long time, I was not a people person. And it's not that I'm antisocial, but I've always had trouble fitting in, and I feared being rejected. So for most of my life, I viewed socialization as something only gifted people could do, like learning multiple languages or becoming an architect or even mastering the electric accordion. Like, I felt like it was a complex skill set that was beyond my ability to understand. So I left it up to people who were more talented in that department. There was occasions where I'd ask popular people for advice, and they would tell me things like, just be yourself, not realizing that being myself at its core was what I believed to be the root of the problem. Then one day, I met a bear. Her presence was powerful, charismatic, and intimidating. She was outgoing, popular, and was described by those who knew her as bright and shiny. I thought I didn't have a chance, but despite all of my reservations, our connection was instantaneous and felt natural in a way that I'd never experienced. And despite all odds, we fell in love. And I was terrified. Not by the prospect of spending my life with her, but by the prospect of sharing a social life with her. Her circle was every bit as vibrant and as interesting as she was. They were artisans, entertainers, and generally titans of their respective fields, whereas I was a blue-collar introvert who could only answer questions one word at a time. I felt like a baby bird that had been kicked out of the nest, and unless I learned how to spread my wings, I would not survive this new world I've been thrust into. However, such was my desire to hold on to this love and acceptance of this one person that it helped me rise above my fear of being rejected by everyone else. So one day I asked, "How do you do it?" And she said, "Easy. Everyone loves Dancing Bear." She went on to explain that when she was young, she was given a bear totem. She didn't want to believe she was a bear, but spirit animals are not about how you see yourself. It's about how people close to you see your nature. The more she looked into it, the harder it was for her to deny. And once she embraced it, it became a defining element of her identity, and she began to feel more confident with her place in the world. So I had to ask, "What do you think my totem could be?" She said, "I think you're a crow." And like her, I did not want to believe I was a crow. She said, "Well, what do we know about you? You like bright and shiny things. Also, as someone who has had to start their life over many times, you exhibit the traits of adaptability and personal transformation that are some of the crow's strongest strengths. Not to mention that crows have an intelligence of a 7-year-old. All of these points were very difficult to deny. I've since embraced my crow spirit, and I've found it useful in understanding my place in the social ecosystem of the world around me. As it turns out, bears and crows have a symbiotic relationship in nature, and the yin and yang of their strengths and weaknesses combined make them a formidable force. Later, that bear and I got married.
Wasn't that
We have
fascinating?
been
In
thriving
our next
for 8
segment,
years.
we're going to dive into some
Over
channel
time,
surfing.
we have learned to
This grab bag
identify
segment features a
other
variety
animals
of
who have wandered
entertaining
into our
content,
ecosystem
including character
and
animation,
use it as a
a
guide to
commercial,
determine
and a movie
how to
review.
navigate those
We
who
have great
might be
performances
harmonious
by
or
Vincent,
disruptive
Loki,
based on the nature
and
of their
Kevin,
animal.
which is me.
The irony is not
Vincent
lost
will
on
start
me,
us off with a
but it
character
took learning
animation
how
where he
to see
reworks the
people's
voice of Sully
nature
from
through
Monsters, Inc.
animal symbolism
Next, Loki will do a
that helped me in a
commercial,
way to
and finally, I
understand
will give
how
us
to
a movie
interact with
review.
humanity.
So sit back,
Thank you.
relax, and enjoy channel surfing, starting with Vincent.
All right. Just follow the sweet sound of my voice. No beeping.
Mike.
All right, open them. Ta-da! What do you think?
What was wrong with your old car?
Da-da-da-da-da. 3 words. 6-wheel drive. Come on, get in. It's adjustable. Will you cut it out? It's like we released the panther. What? Oh! Ow! Oh, wait. What's the button? Hello? Don't touch anything. Oops. Get out of the car, please.
Huh?
Get out.
Okay,
Get out of my car.
That's weird. The airbag didn't go off.
I miss my old car. You know, with the vroom vroom and a clank clank and that bang 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 bang.
Monday's a long day. That's why I always send out for Schlotzky's. I get the original sandwich made with 3 delicious deli meats and lots of real Wisconsin cheese, all on their famous sourdough buns. And suddenly, my Monday's not looking so bad. In fact, I start feeling a little giddy. I chuckle, and I begin thinking it's Friday, and the next day is golf and water skiing and fun and then suddenly I remember it's still Monday. But at least it's the Schlotzky's Monday. Any day is Schlotzky's day. But it's okay to have a favorite.
Hello and welcome to Kevin's Unsolicited Movie Review Corner. Today we're looking at 2008's Pontypool, directed by Bruce McDonald, based on Tony Burgess's 1998 novel Pontypool Changes Everything. For those who perhaps don't remember, the late aughts were part of a zombie mania, growing horde of nearly identical horror films and games. It's difficult to say when this began, from the publishing of Max Brooks's World War Z in 2006, to the wildly popular zombie iteration of the Call of Duty franchise, to the horror comedy Zombieland, to the premiere of The Walking Dead in 2010. Walkers and groaners became a curiously ubiquitous mainstay of popular culture. There must have been some lingering cultural dread of a viral outbreak in the air and infectious fear in the zeitgeist. Premonitions of a pandemic, perhaps. Pontypool is a peculiarity in this parade of pandemic paranoia. Instead of a physical virus, the contagion imagined in Pontypool is more of a meme, an information virus spread by language itself. This risk of infection is compounded by the film's setting, taking place entirely within an Ontario radio station. As the radio host and crew learn the world is falling apart outside, they slowly realize that their station may be a vector of the infection, broadcasting the plague to any local listener tuning in into the emergency broadcast. Zombies are always a metaphor for something, from communism to consumerism, and in Pontypool, the threat seems to be metaphor itself, a cognito hazard, which creates an echo chamber of the mind, reducing the town and perhaps the world to a deranged echolalia. While not a perfect film, Pontypool breathes new life, or unlife, into a well-worn genre. The film is available legally through the Independent Film Channel, or might just be a YouTube search away. Thank you for joining Kevin's Unsolicited Movie Review Corner. Join us next time for another throwback review of David Cronenberg's Videodrome to find out what it would be like if Marshall McLuhan wrote a horror movie.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the show and all the fantastic segments. We'd like to take this moment to invite you to explore more courses in the CCSF Broadcast Electronic Media Arts Department. Whether you're interested in storytelling, animation, or media production, we have a wide range of courses to help you develop your skills and creativity. Thank you again for watching. Have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you in our classes.